How are you doing today, guys? Welcome back in. A little change in ambiance, a little bit of change in scenery, and we are back. We are going to do another episode tonight. I had this thought in my head, and I've been trying to run with it because I don't know what you guys know, uh, but eels. Let's find out. I know, sounds so stupid, dumb. I know what you're thinking. This guy sounds like an idiot, and I probably do, and it's probably fair. But the thing is, there is some mystery to it. There is some intrigue to it. In fact, we're going to dive into that today, into the biology and background of eels. And I've got a wonderful story, an incredible piece of writing that we're going to also go into. And the author deserves a lot of credit. Wonderful piece to read. But we're going to talk about the real mystery of eels, the origin of the deadly, dynamic, and disgusting eels. Are they alien? Are they from this earth? I actually don't know. We're going to find out together, though. This is exciting. Welcome to the mystery. This is Mystery Hills. My name is Derek. Mystery Hills is not going to be that kind of show where we're going to talk about a whole bunch of nonsense. Everything I say is nonsense. So it's not exactly like clean. But we're going to go over some information, some things that I find fascinating. I've got a background in education, so I like to make sure that I do my due diligence when discovering any mystery and try to break it down. Some mysteries out in this world are live and real. Some mysteries are just hoaxes, stories meant to keep magic alive in our hearts and in our minds, not really in reality. But ever so rarely, sometimes there is a real mystery out there. There is a thing that exists outside the norm. Here is where we like to explore and find out what that is. Let's dive into it. Keep an open mind. Today, we're going to talk about the mystery of the European eel. In fact, it goes back millennia. Naturalists and researchers were stumped by their life cycle and late development of sex organs. This writing is by Danielle Olson. So, we're going to talk about this from the Ocean Scientific Education. It's a great website. Smithsonian National Museum of History, Natural History. We're going to talk about this. Slithering, slimy, and brown. The European eel is not the most charismatic nor charming aquatic creature. It may not bring about ideas of mystery or intrigue, yet its existence has plagued scientists with questions for millennia. With its many life stages, its biology is truly vexing. But perhaps the biggest mystery has been tied to just where all eels set out for when they head toward the ocean via coastal streams and rivers at the end of their lives. Think about that for a second. Process that information because that's a little weird, right? They just go out into the ocean via streams and rivers towards the end of their lives. Through the efforts of a team of scientists, it is a mystery no more. In 2022, researchers finally tracked a group of migrating eels to the middle of the Atlantic Ocean in an area known as the Sargasso Sea. Now think about that for a minute, as it is the year 2025, and they barely figured it out. Where they go? The Sargasso Sea. But wait, there's more. It's not the only mystery of this. That's why I'm excited. The mystery of the eel can be traced back to ancient times when Egyptians told of how the eels sprang up from the Nile at the warming of the sun. So this goes back a mystery that's even further back than we talk about. It's kind of funny that we think that this is just such a we know everything about the origin of every species on this earth. Eels, something so innocuous. We know everything about, we see them in zoos. We haven't captured. We know about them, right? But here we are thinking about back to Egyptian times, roughly 4,000 to 5,000 years ago. And here we are talking about eels in a mystery still to this day. For thousands of years, it was the consensus that eels were the exception in the animal kingdom and could bypass the rules of procreation and spontaneously rise from the river mud. There was no greater promoter of this theory than Aristotle, who after immense study, came to their anatomy and proclaimed that they came from within the entrails of the earth, since they seem not to have any sex genitalia and therefore could not procreate through sex. Pliny The elder of Rome had his own thoughts and believed baby eels sprung from the particles shed by adult eels as they rubbed their bodies on riverbed rocks. Generation after generation of scientists continued to be stumped until finally, in the 1890s, scientists observed the last metamorphosis of an eel into its sexually mature state, with sex organs glaringly present. The life cycle of the eel includes several metamorphoses from a larva to a mature eel. So think about it this way, guys. Whenever you think about an eel that you've seen, it's possible you're watching it in a different stage of metamorphosis. And the reason for much of the confusion in the scientific community comes from this. Each life stage is so different from the next. They were once mistaken as different species, and today each stage is identified with its own name to specify which one is being discussed. After hatchling from an egg in the ocean, the the leptocephalus larval eel is swept across. Calm down, calm down. You're an adult. Leptocephalus larval eel is swept across the ocean in the Gulf Stream. It is only millimeters long, with a tiny head and see-through body, very different in appearance from its adult forms. The larvae's journey takes several years, and during several years, the larva eels are in the larva stage, traveling for years. I want you to think about that for a moment because it's going to be kind of intense if you don't think about that. Eels in their larva form for years are just swimming, swimming along. They're millimeters long, millimeters. You have to understand that, please. Millimeters. Go get a ruler, flip it around because on the other side where the centimeters are, in between that, millimeters. I That's crazy. All right. It swims across the ocean in the Gulf Stream. That's crazy. The larva's journey takes several years, and it slowly grows by feeding on tiny bits of marine debris and phytoplankton. By the time it gets to the shores of Europe, it makes its first metamorphosis into a glass eel, a muscular fish with the ability to go dormant in cold seasons and slither across land to find new bodies of water to call home. So the eel not only has been able to swim around in the Gulf Stream for years as a millimeter long larva and maybe not die, but then it grows into this next phase called the glass eel that during cold times can go across land and get to other bodies of water like a snake. Wow. By the time it gets to the shores of Europe, it makes metamorphosis, the glass eel. It goes into freshwater life seamlessly from saltwater to freshwater just by changing into this glass eel. This is when the next transition to a young eel or elver, and then 2 years later to a yellow eel, a muscular fish with the ability to go dormant in cold seasons too. Fuck, dude. So it goes from a glass eel to a yellow eel. Maybe I'm mixing this all up because I'm reading this so fast, but that's just so mind blowing that think about every eel that you know, right? You've seen the different eel species. This is going into the different ones. The eel will spend most of its life as a yellow eel. So a lot of years as that. Then, as if on some hidden cue, a yellow eel will transform into the sexually mature silver eel and make its final migration back out to sea. Though scientists had seemingly solved the mystery of the eel and its reproduction by the early 1900s through the discovery of its sex organs, no one knew where they went to procreate. The eels disappeared into the ocean, and aged larval eels appeared near the shores. The question remained, where did they go? The first inkling that the eels might be traveling to the Sargasso Sea came from the Herculean efforts of Danish zoologist Johannes Schmidt from 1904 to 1921. With a 5-year break for World War I, Schmidt tirelessly trawled the ocean to find larvae and, by extension, the birthplace of eels. Starting from the shores of Europe, he discovered that only the largest larvae, those around 2 to 3 inches in length, were closest to turning into glass eels inhabited in the coastal waters. He needed to expand his search, And as he moved west, the larva continued to get smaller. And it was through this trial and error that he found himself in the middle of the Atlantic with larvae so tiny that there can be no question where the eggs were spawned. It would be 100 more years until confirmation of Schmidt's discovery that adult eels migrated to the Sargasso Sea to lay eggs. Between 1921 and 2022, the understanding that eels traveled to the Sargasso Sea was based on knowledge about the larva. That's where the smallest larvae are, therefore, it must be where they hatch. No spawning eels nor eggs have ever been found there. So they're all basing this theory off of basically, it's Johann Schmidt gets out there and he sees these eels and he tracks them back by size. So the further he heads west, the smaller these larvae get. So as he's going west, he's measuring these out. They're getting smaller and smaller, and makes the hypothesis that if the once we get to the Atlantic, the larvae are so small they must be coming from here as hatchlings. Therefore, eels are from the Atlantic, simply the Sargasso Sea. So it's interesting that he found this and it wasn't able to be proven later, but it was interesting that he figured this out, but it's also not completely the whole truth, right? He was just saying that it got to the Atlantic. Now, through satellite imaging, see, until 2022, through satellite tagging, a technology that allows scientists to track animals via satellite through the placement of a tag. So they're sitting there, they're tagging the eels to make sure that they understand exactly where they're at, where they're going to be, and that's awesome. See, that's smart. Finally became advanced enough in the mid 2000s to be applied to the mystery of the eel. In 2018 and 2019, 26 females were tagged off the coast of the Azores right before they were about to embark on their migration. A year later, 5 arrived in the Sargasso Sea, which led to a major scientific publication in 2022 announcing the discovery. The eels did indeed make a 3,000 to 6,000 mile migration across the Atlantic Ocean, the second longest recorded migration of a bony fish. Scientists have yet to observe a mating in the wild, which will likely be the next great eel mystery to solve. But the discovery of adult eels in the Sargasso Sea is a tremendous milestone. Since the 1980s. The European eel has experienced a 95% decline in its population, putting it on the critically endangered list. The decline is attributed to multiple issues, including dam building, disease, illegal trade, and climate change, and the latter likely influences life stages that live in the ocean rather than during its freshwater life stages. Frustratingly, this is the stage scientists know about the least. If history is any indication, the eel will continue to inspire the most determined scientists, and perhaps, with a little determination, we can unravel the remainder of the secrets in time to save them. This is as of December of 2022, so I don't know if there have been any updates, but that is interesting. Think about it, folks. They still don't know where eels come from. They just know that their last migration of an adult eel's life cycle is to get there. So they're making a lot of assumptions here. This is a lot of working theories. A lot of smart people, I'm sure they have more data to back this up, but from my understanding of this, they are going off of the idea that they tracked these eels all the way across the Atlantic Ocean, 3,000 to 6,000 miles, depending on where they go, to the Bermuda Triangle, and then were unable to figure out what they were doing after that. They just go there, and then the eels come out, larvae come out, and go the other way. What? At the end of their life, they go. And so is it okay? Hold on, because let me just throw out a few wackadoodle ideas. Number one, is that the idea of reincarnation? Are these eels going to the Bermuda Triangles to simply shed their old vessels to exchange anew and start the life cycle over again? Is this an example of reincarnation within this dimension? Crazy out there, I know, it's weird, but think about it. It may not have to be a human reincarnation, but think about how what we know about matter and energy, right? Energy cannot be destroyed, it can only be changed. We don't know what happens to the life cycle, so any guess is as good as the other, but I know this one's really fucking out there. But I still wanna think that there is some elements of mystery and intrigue to this world, and this is definitely one of them. What are your thoughts? What is the possibilities? Pose me some questions. Let's see what you guys think. What kind of mysteries do you know about out there in the universe? Eels. And you know what? I feel like this raises more questions. What about the moray eel? What about the electric eel? What about all these eel species? Are they all just different stages in the eel life cycle? We're talking about the glass eel, we're talking about the European eel, right? Maybe that's just that one species, and maybe they are not connected. But how do other eels mate? How do other eels spawn? Do they all travel? Are the life stages different? Because it was the yellow eel, and that's how they spend most of their life is through the yellow eel. But when we talk about what mystery the mystery of how they became, it's always having to do with their origin, and from what I understand, this origin is yet to be completely known, and I wonder, like, okay, so what about the eels in zoos, in aquariums? What about the eels that exist within the captured activity that we can monitor? What do they have any life cycles? Do they just live and die within the tank? Do they die of old age? How long? What is an eel's life cycle? God, I have so many questions. Next time, we're gonna answer some of those. We're gonna talk more about this. This is a fun episode, the mystery of the eel, the European eel. We're gonna get some more answers for this if we do a follow-up episode on anything. The more that we talk about things, the more that you have questions about it. We'll go ahead and do more research. I'll look into things. I'll give you more answers. I always like interacting. These videos, I'm going to keep posting them. I'm going to keep. There are zero interactions, and I'm actually kind of happy with that because I want there to be a bunch of videos out before anybody has anything to say. We're going to go, just kind of, people watch and talk. We're going to have fun with it. Whether anybody watches, I'm still going to be putting these out because I love talking about mysteries. So if you took the time out of your day to join us at Mystery Hills and learn about eels, maybe you learned something new today. Maybe you thought of a new mystery in your head. Maybe you have questions. Hopefully, we're here to open minds and expand thought process. And hopefully, everybody here had a little bit of entertainment as well. The world is not always a great place, so hopefully you can find some mystery and intrigue and some wonderment here and some hope that there are better things out there and a better tomorrow. Stay safe. We wish you and your loved ones the absolute best. My name is Derek, and this has been Mystery Hills. Thank you for joining.